Welcome to the Procurement Signal, the show that tunes into the future of procurement. In every episode, we dive straight into how modern teams are transforming supplier relationships, elevating vendor management, tackling supplier risk, and driving real sustainability impact. If you're ready to rewire procurement from a back-office function to a strategic powerhouse, you're in the right place. This is your signal. Amplify what procurement can be.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Procurement Signal. Over the last 15 to 20 years, one of the most regulated areas in supply chain compliance has been the topic of forced labor, or as it's commonly known as modern slavery. The reality of modern slavery in our supply chains is horrendous. Yet, it often stays silently hidden in plain sight. Before we look at how this area of compliance has impacted procurement over the years, let me break down this shift in focus over time. Initially, the topic of modern slavery was to encourage transparency and educate people and organizations. The first of its kind was in 2012 with California Transparency in Supply Chains Act. And then a few years later, in 2015, the UK had its own Modern Slavery Act. These regulations asked large organizations and manufacturers to disclose their efforts to eradicate slavery. The next phase of modern slavery laws added prescriptive requirements on what organizations must do and report on. These also came with slightly higher consequences of reputational damage. These include the French Duty of Vigilance Law in 2017, the Australian Modern Slavery Act in 2018, and the German Supply Chain Due Diligence Act in 2021. The current phase of modern slavery laws has significant consequences, such as trade bans and hefty fines. In 2022, the US came up with the Week of Forced Labor Prevention Act. This was a serious step up. It came with the rebuttable presumption that any goods sourced from a particular region was made with forced labor. This means if your goods were selected, you need to prove your innocence, rather than the other way around. Canada's Modern Slavery Act in 2024 introduced fines up to $250,000 for false or misleading statements. The European Union has its own set of regulations with the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive and the Forced Labor Regulation. These are providing pathways for banning or removing products from the entire EU market, if guilty of contributing to modern slavery. So, what do all of these regulations mean for procurement? In larger organizations, there may be a dedicated role for compliance activities. But even if you have this role in place, there is an expectation for a great deal of support from procurement. The support may look like the following. Number one, performing additional administrative checks, especially during supplier onboarding or during lifecycle management. This includes multi-stage vetting. You'd be analyzing social audit reports, labor policies, sub-tier disclosure information, often part of a collective risk assessment. Number two, when you do find a red flag, you play mediator between your business and the supplier until you get to a corrective action plan. Number three, understanding what your supplier does in their operations isn't enough. You have to map out your supplier's supply chain. You have to understand their sub-tiers, the type of industry they're in, the country of operation, and so on. Number four, constant cycle of meetings. These usually happen between the legal department, who are tasked with documenting the disclosures, the risk departments, who are accountable for tracking the risk, and the business, who needs the supplier to keep delivering in spite of the compliance requirements. Number 5. You play the role of an educator to suppliers who are not familiar with these regulations and requirements. Let's face it, many of these regulations are not in countries where there is high volume manufacturing. And so, to cater for those suppliers, you need to play the role of an educator to let them know what the requirements are and why you're asking all this information. Number 6. Balancing business needs with compliance requirements. The business wants that low-cost supplier. That supplier does not even know what modern slavery is. Number 7. Higher spend on third-party intelligence and tools to support compliance needs. So, if you are in procurement for a small private business and do not have the resources or budget to outsource compliance efforts, here are some tips to stay the course. And by that I mean remain compliant whilst keeping your business profitable. Tip number 1. Segmentation by modern slavery risk. Avoid using a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to modern slavery. Sending the same questionnaire or using the same checklist for all your suppliers is a great way to add more work without getting much value out of it. Instead, use government or industry-issued high-risk categories for modern slavery. Map your supply categories to this. Stay with just the direct suppliers, and by direct I mean Tier 1, as these are the relationships you maintain. From here, you can identify a hot list of suppliers to prioritize for further due diligence. Tip number 2. Supply chain mapping. You don't need $100,000 for a software subscription to map your Tier 2s and Tier 3s. A tool like Open Supply Hub could help you get started for free and offers a low-paying upgrade option. In addition, conversations with your Tier 1 suppliers could provide useful guidance. Get your Tier 1s to draw a map of their supply chain, explaining geographies, industry types, and labor risk. Even if they do not wish to provide the name of their suppliers, asking for such a map without the company names still helps you check for risk. Tip number 3. Highly regard certifications. If you know your supplier is certified to an industry or sustainability standard, it should mean less work for you. Tip number 4. Use shared questionnaires. Instead of asking your supplier to fill out a custom-made questionnaire, ask them to share a similar questionnaire already submitted for another client. Perhaps they could provide you a redacted copy if they do not wish to disclose the name of their other customers. And tip number 5. Tie risk management into other processes. Identify ways the hot list of suppliers can reduce your risk level. This could be part of routine processes such as QBRs or quarterly business reviews or performance reviews. When it gets to contract renewal, ensure these requirements are captured so your supplier forces risk mitigation over continuing business as usual. At the end of the day, modern slavery compliance isn't just about avoiding a hefty fine or dodging a trade ban. It's about human lives behind the goods and services you source. As a small team, you don't need a massive budget to make a massive difference. By shifting your focus from a checkbox exercise to strategically managing your high-risk suppliers or suppliers from high-risk industries, you're doing more than just protecting your business's bottom line. You're building a supply chain that is ethical. And that means a lot. Remember, transparency is a journey, not a destination. Start small, use free tools at your disposal, and keep those lines of communication open with your suppliers. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Procurement Signal. Stay curious, stay diligent, and I'll see you in the next one.
If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a colleague or, even better, your leader. They'll thank you later. And that's what the Procurement Signal is here to do. Amplify the real value of procurement and help teams everywhere step into their strategic power. Please subscribe, share it with your team, and join us next time on another transformative procurement topic. Visit www.procurementsignal.com for more info. Stay curious and keep tuning into the signal.